Welcome to this event organized by FACME, HR Forum, and the French Tech. So it's a pleasure to have you here. We have a hybrid session today with some people joining in person and others virtually. So welcome everyone. I'm just going to say a few words about who I am. I'm Philippe Latapi. I'll be moderating the panel discussion. It's a pleasure to do that. We have a great panel for you on this topic, the top 10 do's and don'ts for attracting talent in today's market. So I'm on the board of FACME, and I want to thank the French-American Chamber of Commerce of New England for organizing this event. We have Ludivine here, who is the executive director. And this is also in partnership with the French Tech, La French Tech Boston. And we have Chris Holt representing La French Tech here, and a number of the members of the La French Tech who are with us today as well. In addition to being with the FACME, I'm the managing director of a company called Stratex EXL. We do experiential learning to develop leaders in large companies. And we have a little bit of French Tech in us as well, because we use business simulations to create immersive experience for teams to collaborate and run a business in a safe environment of a simulation. So I'm passionate about talent development. I've got a colleague of mine, Sebastian Lamieux, here as well. And so today we're going to talk about talent, but not development, more about attracting talent. It's definitely a tight market, but we have a number of experts with us to cover this topic. And I think you'll be quite excited to learn from them. And we worked with Chris, he said, let's make sure it's very practical, hands-on tips. And so that's the brief we had a chance to prepare yesterday. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. I'll start with Myriam Le Cannelier. Myriam is joining us from Chicago. She is the co-founder and director of a company called DSML Executive Search. So she focuses on helping European companies build a presence and build up their operations in the US at the management level, with operations in Boston and in Chicago. So Myriam, welcome, and feel free to say just a few words about your story as well before I move on to the next panelist.
Yeah, thank you, and good evening, everyone. So I co-founded DSML Executive Search 15 years ago, and since the beginning, we've always kept the same niche, which is to help European companies in the US. Most of our clients are French companies. We help them find and recruit their executive talent. Three main areas where we have a lot of experience is general management, sales and business development, as well as finance. We also work in other functions, but these are the main functions that we help our clients with. And we work across the US also.
Very good. Thank you very much. Then we have Ralph de Medeiros, who is joining us from a company called Ultimate Kronos Group. And Ralph is talent acquisition leader at Ultimate Kronos Group, a large software company focused on people management. So Ralph has large experience in recruitment as well. He was an external recruiter before joining Ultimate Kronos Group. So welcome, Ralph. Maybe you want to say a few words as well about
your story. Hello, everyone. So I'm Ralph. So I'm working for UKG, Ultimate Kronos Group, a software company in HR, and we provide solution in workforce management or in human capital management solution. Before I was working in France for executive search boutique, but also as a corporate recruiter. And I would say I've been working mostly on IT and recruiting software engineer for 10 years now.
Great, well, thank you. So a lot of expertise in IT recruitment, which is a big area of focus for a lot of the French tech companies. So great. And last but not least, we have on our panel Jay Casavant, who is the founder and president of Vantage Point Recruiting. He's here together with his associate Uli, and working also in IT and engineering. So welcome, Jay. Maybe you want to say a few words about your story as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Philippe. I'm Jay Casavant, Vantage Point Recruiting, and I've been the sole proprietor of our search firm. We specialize in operations, engineering, and IT. And we cover the northern New England area, working Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. And I come from an agency and made that decision 15 years ago to branch out onto my own, and have had some very interesting stories that I hope to share with the group. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Very good. Thank you. And we have Cliff Watkin. I see him in the background with the chair of our HR forum. So glad to have you here as well, Cliff.
Thank you, Philippe.
And we even have our former chairman, Jack Goldenberg here. So very, very good. So I'd like to maybe start the conversation by just putting things a little bit in perspective. I wanted to take advantage of the fact that our panelists together have more than 45 years of experience in this market. And so, you know, they have a long view. A lot of things have changed in the past 2 years, for sure, in the talent market. But I thought what would be interesting from the experts is to hear your perspective on what changes, what are maybe some of a couple of changes that you think are here to stay for at least the next 6 or 12 months, because I think that's what matters. You know, I think the longer view, it's always hard to predict. But from what you've seen, what is it that you think is here to stay through 2022 and maybe, you know, the next 12 months? So let me start maybe with Jay, if you want to paint a picture for us a little bit.
Given the last 18 months, 2 years has really been through the pandemic situation, we've really been more of a remote workplace. And with that, the challenges that come with that have hit us in spades. Our inflation rates are just rampant right now. And the dynamics are very prevalent and felt throughout the community. There's the great great decline in the workforce, with having a large number of our more seasoned or senior workforce wanting to resign. And it's causing a lot of problems with a lot of companies that are used to the native language or talent and knowledge. And it's really causing a lot of problems for a lot of companies in executing their deliverables. So finding people is twice and 3 times as hard as what it was. And we're just, having been in this marketplace for 30 years, I've never seen such a difficult marketplace to capture how to retain those key people in an organization that are responsible for making it happen.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Miriam? What are some of the trends, a couple of trends that you see that are here to stay in your perspective?
So the trends I'm seeing that I think are here to stay, as first, I would summarize with one word, which is flexibility. There's a big expectation from, I would say, any level. We'll see it at executive level, maybe in a different way, but obviously mid-management even more. An expectation from candidates for a flexible work environment. And when I say flexible, it goes from hybrid type of setup. Usually the type of position we're dealing with are not necessarily going well with full remote. But even when someone, for example, even for a finance director role, we have a couple of searches right now in that field. Usually in the past, these searches would have been in the office 5 days a week. Well, candidates, one of the first questions they ask, is it, a flexible environment? Can I come, only 2 or 3 days a week? And we see that really across the board in most roles. And linked to that, there's an expectation also from a candidate for a better work-life balance. I think it's something personally, I'd never heard that much than recently. And I think it's here to stay, especially with the younger candidates, the younger generation. They are all expecting more vacation time than ever. Not too long ago, it was standard for a lot of companies to offer 2 or 3 weeks vacation when someone starts. What I'm seeing right now, and I advise a lot of our clients, even if you're new and small, you have to start right away with maybe 20 or 25 days of vacation. Otherwise, people are just, passing. So this around work-life balance is huge. Also, it's a trend that I think is going to stay for a while.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Yeah, interesting, especially as you're hiring a lot at the management level, you're still seeing this demand for flex work. Very interesting. And let's continue with Ralph on these trends that you think.
Yes, I think that's another thing is the recruitment process himself. I mean, when I say the recruitment process is from the job description, you don't have to write a very long job description anymore. You have to be very concise, for example, and also the interview process. Right now, if you want to hire a candidate in this hot market, 12 interviews during the process, you will lose a candidate. So it's our job also to train the hiring manager to the process, because we are the specialists and we know the market. So we have to reduce the interview process between 1 to at least, I would say, 3 rounds of interview, and then to make a decision right away, not to wait until next week. And So the recruitment process, like for example, the interview online, I think it's here to stay. I think nobody will again go to the office, I think, to make a face-to-face interview. I think it's a trend that is here to stay.
Okay, very good. Yeah, thanks for setting the context a little bit. It seems to be clearly a candidates market. So, with that in mind, all the more important to reflect on what are some of the things to do, the best practices in today's environment. Again, they could be very different from just a couple of years ago. So I would like to ask our panelists, what are the items that are maybe the top 2 or 3 on your list of things that need to be done, practical tips, practical things that companies should keep in mind when hiring talent today. So anybody can start.
Sure, I'll start. Yeah. Having your present online is the most important thing that you want to exemplify your company values, your mission. It is really important that you put that out there in a very strong manner that really depicts your company well and shows that you have that vision for who you are, what you stand for, and where you are intending to go. And the better that you can depict your vision on an online presence, the better off you're going to be, because everybody looks at a website and looks at your credentials on LinkedIn. And if you're the face of the company you have to have a strong presence, many connections, and understanding the essence of LinkedIn and how to use it. And I spend an inordinate amount of time on LinkedIn and really massaging that. And the same goes with a website. You have to consistently tweak your tools to identify those avatars, those target audiences that you're looking to attract. And then when it comes to job descriptions, when you're looking to attract individuals, this happens all the time in our marketplace. Our clients come to us and they say, we don't find anybody from the ads that we're putting out. And what it ends up being is companies are being exclusive as opposed to inclusive. So you want to set your job description so that you have a nice header that depicts your company and what you're about and what your sizzle is. And then a job description that is more inclusive, because you can always exclude people in a relatively nimble manner. It takes time and it takes perseverance, but there are no real shortcuts for recruiting. It's a very time-consuming and arduous process that is very detailed. And there's just no getting around that. You have to talk to people, you have to feel them out. And we highly recommend that we talk to references that know these people for multiple years to understand the attributes and the qualities that really drive these people. And then use your job descriptions to be able to ferret out those attributes and characteristics that best describe people. It's said that you always overhire or underhire. And the important part of that is there's no such thing as a perfect fit. So you're always going to be thinking in terms of what are the most important elements, and then satisfying those first and foremost, and then getting to a secondary hierarchy. But the other part of this is entrepreneurs, they're extremely busy people. So it's very difficult to get a couple people in the room, but we recommend that if you're going to interview, make sure there are a couple people in the room so that you are able to share perspectives and challenge people's assertions for why they would be a good fit and or not.
When you talk about inclusive job description, do you focus on diversity? Say my company welcome, different gender diversity or ethnicity, sex different, or are you going further with the technical skills or skills?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, you always want to seem to invite diversity and immigration and so forth. I mean, that's without question. It's always an important element to have a diverse employee base so that you have that mix and different communication styles that really lead to a vibrant workplace. Yep.
Can I just add one quick short thing? I think what Jacques is asking is a really good question about inclusivity in terms of the job description or job posting itself, not necessarily relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but specifically when jobs were posted prior to COVID or even 5 years ago, the job description was always looking for the right fit, which is not inclusive. Come apply to us if you meet these specific criteria. What I think Jay is also outlining is that we're offering you a position at our organization to do a variety of work. Come talk to us about what we can offer you. And therefore, we'll be much more inclusive by inviting more people to come and apply.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good. Yeah, I don't, I've seen some large corporations where they feature some of their employees, they do like little video interviews, but this is not something that's expensive. I wonder, do you see some smaller companies do this? Is it something you would recommend?
I have not seen it as much, but I certainly believe that there's plenty of that happens in the Boston area more specifically.
All right, let's see what Miriam has on her best practice list, in terms of things to do in today's environment to secure more talent.
Yeah, and I would say, so I obviously agree with what Jay said, and I want to reinforce what you said about having a website. I'll go further because I know our audience includes a bunch of French companies. Having a US website, because often I've seen clients with a website that is actually hosted in Europe, and you could tell it's been designed by Europeans. It doesn't have necessarily the US feel or the expectation of US audience. So I think it's important to have as much as possible a US design or US website, especially for recruitment purposes. A big to-do for me is having a fast process, and Ralph talked about it. Fast and established process, so you don't discover as you do who is going to interview when and what. You want to limit the number of interviews. I would say upper management, you probably can go up to 4 or 5 rounds of interviews. It makes sense. But other jobs, I would say right now, probably not more than 2 or 3 rounds, maybe 2 rounds. And as much as possible, 2 people to maximize, the efficiency of interviews. But knowing in advance, having decided, applying it consistently, and having also some space on agendas. I have a story I know anecdotes sometimes are useful. Right now, we have a candidate that we have introduced for a search. The client, the 2 people we're supposed to interview, they're fighting together about agendas, and it's delaying, and I'm thinking, you're not logical, Mr. Client. I'm obviously not saying it that way, but you say it's very urgent. You say talent is a critical component right now, but you're not making time for those interviews, and then you're delaying the process 1 more week in a market where you have to be extremely fast. So I think when you start a search, it should be a priority. You need to make time for it. And then I would add one last thing, and again, it's specific probably to newcomers and smaller companies that set up shop in the US. You need to be ready with all the benefits. You can't be hiring someone and say that, in a few months or in a few weeks, we'll have a 401k and we'll have, a healthcare plan available. But right now, we don't have that in place. Right now, in this market, you really need to be ready. And there are so many options now for companies. Even when you have only 1 or 2 employees, you can use third-party providers to get access to those benefits. But the benefits are an essential part of any package right now. So you need to have those ready. It's super important, I think.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we heard a few times already the speed, being ready to go fast. I can relate. I have a daughter who was applying for quite a few jobs after an MBA, and Microsoft was the one that was really late. Yeah. So she's like, well, they're probably not interested in me, and I have to move on because she had to make a decision anyway. And so you're kind of signaling, if you're delaying. Okay, so Ralph, what are the recommendations on your end?
I will
Practical
say that.
tips.
Yeah, I will say that as a corporate recruiter, also recruitment is not only the job of the recruiter, I will say. It's everyone in the organization to be involved in the recruitment process. You start, for example, also with the direct hiring manager. For example, to share on this LinkedIn profile, for example, the job description for example, and to share also the job description, for example, with the member of his team, for example, his or her team. So it's not only up to the recruiter, because sometimes the hiring manager came, so I want something, I want this profile, and that's it. And you submit your profile and it's okay. But no, everyone needs to be involved. That's why also the, I would say the program, the referral program is also very important. So yes, that's the big thing. You find a lot of good candidates through the referral program, but also, for example, in the internship, because usually also after the internship, you don't know what happened to this to this intern, and maybe 6 months later they are graduate with a bachelor degree, a master degree, and they're looking for a job as a young graduate. So you have to keep a good pipeline of intern and to reach out to this the best candidate, the best intern candidate, and to reach out to this candidate for the younger.
Actually, I wanted to expand on that because I've had this experience recently where this one manager came into this organization that had a average reputation, but this individual really knew how to treat their employees and was very warm as a person. And that whole personality that was very compelling and really made it attractive for a lot of his engineers that were working for him. An individual can change the vibrance, the attractiveness in an organization, one person, so that it can be a kind of like a beachhead for what other managers should be doing in the organization. And it's so critical that one person that can come into an organization with that fortitude and knowledge that your people, you treat them well, you listen to them. And that is the secret sauce in most instances.
To jump on that, I think that I want to say the way how we train manager to be efficient during interview is a key factor of success. And the reverse. In Sanofi, we have some managers who are excellent scientists, but if you show this guy in front of candidates, if you want to fail, you know you have to choose this guy. And recently, I talked with a candidate, and normally I don't do that, but the resume was great, the guy was excellent, and he wanted to decline. And he told me, your manager in clinical told me that I need 7 years, to be operational in this job. So, and again, it's very basic, but sometimes you just need to organize workshop and to be sure that our people are the best advertiser of the company. Otherwise, you will discourage an army of good potential for your company.
Or exclude the person from interviewing because they're not capable of reaching out and doing what's necessary to attract the right people.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for sharing those stories. It's funny because there's a saying that's you join a company and you leave a manager, but what you're saying is actually you also join a manager. So make sure that the managers people interview with are ready to be welcoming and do the job. Maybe Ralph, a question for you. You mentioned those referral programs, and I don't know if everybody is aware how that works. What's the common practice? So is it to incentivize employees to?
Yeah, exactly. If as an employee, you can refer candidates for a job, and you will get something, an amount of money if this candidate is hired. So yeah, we're trying to develop this kind of referral program.
Is that common in the US? This?
Yeah.
It is, huh?
Yeah. Depending on the level, of course, the amount is higher if you hire someone who is more experienced.
So a recent study showed that 6% of companies are offering referral programs that are successful, meaning that they are able to get candidates to come and join the organization. Many companies, much more companies offer the referral bonus program, but they're not very successful. And a lot of it has to do with how it's communicated, like you said, and how it's developed and how the managers are communicating it to their employees and saying, we're hiring for this job, we're struggling, send me candidates, or, the referral programs were designed many years ago, and the HR function hasn't really redesigned it to represent what we need today, which is fast, impactful, results driven, and rewards that individuals who work for the company or out of the company can bring somebody in and get $50 or $100, whatever it is. There were all these other rules that were attached to it, like you have to work for this many years and blah, blah, blah. And it just discouraged people from bringing people. But we just need, meaning HR, just needs candidate flow. And so what the study was showing was that 6% are only successful with these referral programs. We have to change it. We have to change the way we're doing our referral programs so it can just improve candidate flow, not necessarily improve candidates that are going to come work for us and stay with us.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a number of people online as well. If you have questions, just raise your hand or feel free to unmute if you're muted and just jump in if you have any question. Okay. All right, so let's if there's no question right now, so let's move on to the flip side of the previous question. There's I'm in the, okay, we have a question actually. What reference program works well? All right. Do you want to expand a little bit on?
Yes. Hi, my name is Joanne Chinuzzi. I'm from Veolia, North America. So we do have a reference program, that it's been going on for years and years. And, yes, the fact that it works, but not overly working. So what could we do to make it more attractive? Is it only the money part? Is it something else? Does anyone do something different in this end?
Good question.
Yeah, good question.
I'm happy to answer if that's okay, just since we've had some experience with it. I think the organization needs to divide the referral program into two buckets. One, candidate recruitment, meaning we want you to bring us candidates who are qualified, that are going to fit the specific job we're looking for, and reward people for that. And then the second bucket is to reward people for candidate flow. So they meet basic criteria that the organization is looking for, and you go in, HR, you meaning HR, you going in, you're vetting these candidates to determine whether they're qualified to come in for an interview, and reward the people for improving candidate flow. And so set a benchmark to say, okay, you bring in this many candidates or one candidate or whatever the number is, and just reward them a small amount for bringing you candidate flow. So at least you're getting people in the pipeline. Referrals are the most successful in applications. That's the other thing that the, in hires. That's the other thing that the survey said was the higher success rate you have from bringing somebody into the organization as a referral, the higher offer letter option you get by those people, because they're referred, it's a trusted company, they're more open to the organization.
Okay, good. Yes. So, definitely if it's kind of, you already have a connection as a referral, you feel like there's this trust building. Yeah, Ralph?
But I think also, just to echo what Steve is saying, that usually when open position pops out, the hiring manager is the only one aware of this position, of this open position in the organization. Usually, his or her team doesn't know that there is an open position. So for a successful CA referral program, everyone in the team needs to be, aware that we have an open position within the organization and to share the news everywhere.
Right.
That's why I send usually I share with all the team member, not only of course the hiring manager, but the other member of the team, the job description, and to share the news and to share also the job description.
Yeah. Very good, very practical. So yeah, we're gonna switch to the last question to the panelists, which is, and I'm in the business of learning. So we often say you learn more from mistakes, right? Because but you learn the hard way. We make that risk-free with our business simulations, but here you will have a chance to learn from other people's mistakes, right? That's the best way of learning. It's less expensive. So we have 3 experts, and I like to ask them, what are the top 3 items on their list of don'ts? What are the things you absolutely don't want to do in today's market? Because that's going to detract you or be off-putting to potential recruits. Who wants to start? Jay, okay?
Sure. In the interview process, you want to elevate these candidates' understanding of them being successful in the role. Well, if they're interviewing with a team that doesn't have a full understanding about the position, and even having conflicting ideas about the deliverables for these positions, that can cause major havoc in an organization or in an interview process. Where, well, the simple solution, and it's not always easy, it's that people need to know and be on the same page and have a plan for what are the important elements of this position and what is their function going to be, how are they going to interface with all their teammates. It's very important that everybody is on that same page so that when this person is interviewing, they don't get conflicting data about what is going on in the interview. And then the other things relating to making sure that your interview team is prepared and charged to really do a good job in putting that face forward for the company.
Thank you. So it's like, we have to go fast, but don't rush it, right? You need to make sure you align your team first so that the process will be productive with the candidates. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, we want to go next with the.
I don't mind going next because I want to build on what you just said, Jay. I think it's essential that everyone interviewing should be aligned. And that's why, for example, in our process, what we do is we make sure that there's an initial call with all the stakeholders. Because otherwise, what you don't want is people are interviewing, but it was never discussed internally with the different people what exactly is expected from the candidates. And that creates a bad image. It could create really a bad feeling in the candidates, mind about the company, about the role. They're not clear. They don't know what they want. So it's not good for the image of the company, and it's not good for the recruitment itself. My 2 other points, I think the one big point I have about don't is if you don't have the adequate compensation right now for a specific role, I'm not saying you should be at the top of the market range, but it has to be reasonably priced compared to the market right now. Otherwise, you're just wasting time, and time is money. So you actually have maybe to go to the drawing board again and say, if we're not able to pay that specific role at market price, maybe we're not ready for the US. So maybe we have to look at other things, but it's a big thing right now, because otherwise you can run into circles and not feel a position just because it's totally disconnected in terms of compensation. And my last point, a big don't also, I think, is not having an onboarding ready to go the minute the person starts. Oh, it's going to be training on the job, or we'll improvise, we'll decide who the person has to talk to. No, you should have an onboarding that has already been prepared, established, that is, going to help the candidate integrate quickly in the job, in the company, but also the candidate will feel better, will feel welcome, will feel that it's organized, instead of having the first couple of days that are very, vaguely organized. I think that's a big one that sometimes it's a little forgotten, especially in smaller companies.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first impressions, as people join, very important to have the right onboarding. And I know we talked a little bit before about this compensation issue. You said that's something that you always have to kind of coach European companies about. Do you feel like there is a bit of a
Yes.
difficulty for European companies to read the American market in that sense?
Yeah, it ranges, I think, from cultural reason to, you can't compare salaries and compensation in the US and France, for example. You can't. So when I hear constantly clients say, yeah, this role in France is this, I'm willing to pay a little more, but, but the thing is, you can't compare. Compensation is totally different. It's a different market. It's like real estate. If you come to New York and you think you can buy maybe a, one bedroom for, I don't know, not the right price, you won't find it. So it's a little bit of the same for me with compensation. You have to listen, you have to do your homework, and if you're not prepared, if you can't pay what it takes to be doing business in the US, maybe you have a problem. So again, I'm not saying companies should overpay, but I think there's really a range from totally underpaying, not being at the market price, and there's a margin that some companies need to look at. I'll give you an example. You can be looking for, I think, if you look at a sales director, let's say, it's a position that we often have been asked about, especially in a technology market, and you're looking for a sales director who is going to be in charge of the US. But because the company is quite small, they want to pay, let's say, I don't know, a base of 100,000 plus some bonus. It's not enough. And I'm turning to Jay and Ralph. Maybe you have other, other metrics in mind, but it's just not going to be enough. And you need to look at these numbers. Market salary information is available. Obviously, sometimes you do research on Glassdoor and that type of site, and the information is so-so, I would say, in terms of quality. But you also can talk with other entrepreneurs, companies that have been established for a longer period of time, recruiters. There are so many resources to get you the right kind of reasonable range to find a specific role. I think it's important, it's really important.
Can I ask Miriam a question? Miriam, quick question for you, since you have a lot of experience working with French companies coming to the US and opening up. I wanted to know whether you have an understanding that the US companies, when they're thinking compensation that they're providing to the employee, is total compensation. So that's comp and benefits, because our benefits are all managed and purchased by the employer. In France, there is the compensation, and a good amount of the benefits are provided by the government. So is that do you see that contributing to maybe some of the French companies not having a complete understanding of what compensation is in the United States? Or
Yeah,
that's something different?
I would say yes and no, because now I think companies, when they come to the US, are way more prepared than they were maybe 5-10 years ago. So they already understand that there is the element that is money, you know, base and bonus eventually, and then benefits. They have heard of it. So I think they understand that. They don't necessarily have the benefits in place right away or quick enough, and maybe they don't have the right benefits. But again, I've seen a trend towards better benefits from newcomers. But I think where the disconnect is often the money compensation, so the base and bonus, and especially I would tell you the base salary, because bonuses, okay, everyone says, okay, you have a bonus of 50% if you're in sales, or 30% or 20%. That's not the issue, but the issue is the base often. And sometimes, I think it's because people compare all the time. They have those French or European salaries in mind. I'll say something about that, by the way. I've noticed a difference between several different European countries when we do, because we don't only work with French companies, generally Nordic countries and Switzerland, they have a different approach to compensation. I think they get it quicker in terms of the US. They align faster than our French clients or Italian clients are a little bit the same. They tend to be not so fast in adopting the salaries in the US. They're always a little below.
Yeah, so maybe I have a question on this topic to all the panelists here. In terms of being practical and not to waste time, to your point, Miriam, do you recommend that the compensation range be on the job posting right from the beginning, or not?
So we don't post jobs because I'm not a company. We're executive recruiters. So I just don't know if, I think maybe I'm not the best person to answer that question. But it's true that being very upfront with compensation is certainly helpful nowadays. In fact, when we do approach candidates, which in my company, that's what we do. We go after candidates who generally have a job. That's one of the first things we check with them. And we tell them, we say, we don't want to waste your time. So once we describe briefly the opportunity, we say, what would be your expectation so that we don't waste your time?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question, Philippe, because I read something recently. I think it's in New York now. Correct me if I'm wrong. They require now, or maybe in a few months, that all the job description will add the salary in the job description. And they say that, yeah, it's fine for the candidate, but at the same time, for the employees, is going to trigger a real mess. If you see the salary range, you look at your salary, oh, I'm not doing that, something like that. So on the other side, yeah, it can trigger a lot of resignation. So
okay, like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so hot topic for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because also with the inflation right now, for example, for our company, we review every job code to be aligned with the market, for example. And right now, it's, I would say, a fight with the HRBP, for example. When we do an offer, the HRBP need to check for the internal equity. And usually, when we bring a candidate, is making more than the current employee. So it's already the situation right now.
Okay.
With this hottest market.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be a segue to our next week. We'll have a session on how to retain talent. But maybe to finish off, Ralph, on your own recommendations of mistakes to avoid, from your experience, practical things to avoid.
I would say also as a recruiter, you not to. I think the candidate experience needs to be very, exceptional right now. I mean, you have to follow the candidate from the beginning, even during the onboarding process. As the market is pretty hot, you never know what's going to happen, and you never know because, we have, for example, 3 days, the candidate during the offer have 3 days to return and sign the offer. And you still don't know if this candidate is going to sign. So that's the reason why you have to follow a very, the candidate in all the steps from the of course, the interview process, because you have to coach, for example, the candidate before. It's what I'm doing. I'm coaching also the candidate before the interview process to give them the bed share. I can give them some tips before the interview, for example, and after you can do a follow-up interview. What was your impression? What was your feedback? So you have to be, very work closely with the candidate during all the process, even during the onboarding process. So I would say the don'ts, it's not to follow the candidate and thinks everything is done as soon as the candidate tell you that it's okay. Yeah.
With that, I would say, Ralph, it can be interesting where what happens in our business is a little different from yours in that we're representing a host of clients where you're working for one corporation. So one of the areas that I find to be very interesting is you're developing rapport with your candidates and helping them in the interview process for best practices on introducing yourself and making a positive first impression, understanding the essence of the positions and the culture, company culture. Salary creep comes in where they start in the interviewing phase, and as time goes on, they start to see it gelling and coming together, and all of a sudden their value starts escalating.
So the salary expectation at the beginning is not the salary anymore during the process as they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very difficult situation because you're trying to hold on to that, and then you want to say to these candidates, what has changed since we first spoke? So it's an important element to be able to guard the process and be able to hold people accountable in terms of what has changed over time, and really talking about expectations and holding people accountable for these discussions. And it can get interesting.
Yeah.
So it is a very interesting process, and it's not a foolproof process because people are fickle and they do have a changing mindset for their value.
Yeah, okay. Very good. So we're about to wrap up, but a couple of questions. If you have questions, Chris, yes.
So we've been talking about process and being fast and all this stuff. So what would be the do and don'ts when it comes to tools to support that process? I can understand that for less than 5 candidates, you can use an Excel spreadsheet with some emails. What about 50 position open? What tools you use, and what are, do you have some numbers about number of recruiters per number of positions to be managed, numbers like that.
And maybe just to complete, do you need to test of the candidates?
Right, well, it does
Yes,
depends on
yeah.
the complexity of the position. So if it is multidimensional, where you're looking at 3 or 4 key variables, that's where things get very interesting.
So my question is much more, which tool do you prefer? You,
Well, right,
for that, because
well,
it
you
depends, yes, for sure.
yeah, you want to have a applicant tracking.
Do you trust this kind of engine that do a match between job description and resumes? Was it too early for that?
So I can tell from experience because we use JobBite, and JobBite just launched like I think maybe a year ago, like a matching tool, and we used it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The AI behind it was really bad. We had hired people who really matched the job, and they're in red, like meaning that they don't match the position. So we were super excited, but it doesn't work.
What's the name of the company?
It's JobBite.
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 I know this
You want
tool,
to
yeah.
forget this.
Yeah. They're not a French tech one, right? Okay.
That's not.
I
What do
can
you do?
I can add an experience. We, for our recruiting, we use Zoho Recruit. Zoho Recruit has the same technology as JobBites. It works. It's not exactly the same. What it does is it reads the resume, finds the skills that the person put on the resume, runs it through their AI, and tells you the percentage of closeness or whatever to what you've asked on the job rec, the job position.
Sure.
So it takes the skill from the resume and what you said on what you want for the job posting, and puts them together and says, okay, yeah, this person's a 4 or 5. It is not perfect at all, but at least it gives you one metric to be able to say, yeah, there's some things that match. Agreed, they're going to be, we've hired people who don't match at all, and we're like, why didn't the system work? But you can't use that metric only.
How many you think a recruiter can handle? How many job positions one recruiter can handle? Is that 5, 10, 20?
20. For me, around
if you're
20. It depends.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like a company who has an internal recruiter full time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around 20.
time?
Yeah. Around 20.
We have some ratio with higher but it's higher like 35.
One recruiter.
My question is like, is the
Wow.
recruiter doing the sourcing as well? So that's where like, it depends on what you call a recruiter, because then you can have the sourcing that is separated from really recruiters doing the interview, and then you have to like, how do you generate the offer? And so it depends on what you
It depends on the job.
Yeah.
Have you ever used a scorecard principle?
I'm just curious. I'm not using anything.
Okay.
You were
Well,
you were asking a question about the tests. That's a good question. For the technical software, so I recruit mostly software engineer position. We try to get rid of the test, to be honest, because a lot of in the hottest market, usually it was you submit a test even before the interview process. But as the market is so hot right now, you're going to lose a lot of candidates. So now it's up to the manager to be able to assess the candidates during their technical interview without any test.
Okay, I have to be the timekeeper here, so we're getting to the top of the hour, so we need to wrap up for the session. But we do have the opportunity for a follow-up Q&A meeting with the experts, with our panelists, and we set that up for Thursday this week from noon to 1. So if you're online, just send me a chat saying, yes, I'm interested, and we'll reach out to you to send you the Zoom link for that. And we'll do the same here around the table in a minute. As you may have seen as well, there's a clear linkage between attracting people and the importance then once you have attracted them, even from the very early stage, make sure you retain them. So the HR Forum, we are hosting a panel as well next Tuesday, same place, same time on this topic. What are the top 10 do's and don'ts for retaining talent in today's market? And with that, I want to thank our panelists again, Miriam from Chicago, Ralph and Jay here, and everyone who joined and made this event possible. So thank you, Chris from the French Tech, and Ludivine from FACME, and Cliff here with us.
Thank you, everyone.